Welcome to Doctrine and Devotion, a podcast exploring Christian faith and practice from a Reformed Baptist perspective. My name is Joe Thorne. I'm the lead pastor of Redeemer Fellowship in St. Charles, Illinois.
And I'm Jimmy Fowler, elder candidate at Redeemer Fellowship.
What's up?
What's up with you?
Well, all right.
No, I just wanted to sing it to you.
All right, yeah.
I wanted to sing it to you.
I like that you sing. That is
But
nice because you've been rather abusive today.
Oh,
you've
I have
been a
not
little.
been.
You've
How
been a
have I
little.
been abusive?
You've been a little abusive, a little aggro.
Okay, you know why? You deserved it for how horrible you were at Canasta today.
First of all, I made one
big mistake.
One mistake with one card.
Big mistake.
One mistake.
Actually,
and
twice.
you could have froze that thing a long time ago.
No,
Yeah.
you made.
Nobody cares. Nobody even knows how to play Canasta.
I know, but I'm just old men do. And us. You made a big mistake.
Okay, I made one misplayed on one thing.
And because of that, what happened? We lost.
We weren't able to play to our fullest potential.
Either way, we lost because of you.
I don't know that we lost. I feel like
actually,
I feel like we.
No, the score shows that we lost.
Yeah, but that's not the focus. The point is,
all right, little snowflake.
We could have done better.
Like, we all got a participation
Nobody
ribbon.
really loses in life, Jimmy. That's what I'm saying.
Oh no, people do lose. People lose.
Yeah, especially when I misplay in Canasta.
Yep. So thanks, appreciate that. What's been going on with you?
I'm excited for the podcast.
I'm pumped.
You know why?
Because you and I are here together, and we are going through this pastoral care, and so we're gonna kind of jump right into discuss
we're
it,
not.
and kind of go with
because somebody's back.
Oh well, can we guess who's back?
Guess who's back?
Back again.
Patrick's back.
Oh, tell your friend.
He's here.
He's here.
Pastor Pat's in the house.
Hey, what's up, Pastor Pat?
Hey, everybody.
Oh.
All right, that's enough. You can go now.
Yeah, okay.
Sweet. I love getting the easy jobs.
There you go.
Man, we Pat's one of our closest friends, and we get to work together.
Mm-hmm.
We love Pat, and we were thinking like, let's cover pastoral care, and we knew obviously we need
Obviously.
obs.
Oh,
We need Pastor Pat.
that's right.
All right, so we're going to be talking about pastoral care, but before we even jump in, we probably should clarify what we mean.
Well, how about this?
pastoral care.
Before we get to that, why don't we have him introduce himself? Because maybe some listeners have came in and haven't listened through all the episodes.
Maybe
and
some listeners have came in.
Yeah, like they came in
So that
to the podcast.
you need to go learn some English.
No,
okay? 'Cause
no. Listen, my pappy spoke me how to teach,
okay.
and so I'm telling you now, some people may have came and found the
You're right,
podcast
you're right.
midway, and
You're
they don't
right.
know who. I
You're
know
right.
I'm right,
You're
just
right.
like I was at Canasta. Continue.
Pat, who are you?
My name is Pat Aldrich.
All right, sounds good. And so, no, go ahead.
I'm community life pastor here at Redeemer Fellowship, and I get to babysit Joe and Jimmy on a regular basis.
That's really
That's
true.
pretty much it,
Yeah,
yeah.
that's definitely true. Pat and I have known each other since like 1991, I think. Something like that.
Yep.
And we became friends then. And then Pat, you went to Multnomah Bible College?
Correct.
Because Moody wouldn't take you. And then what? Did I just...
Wow.
What? That didn't happen.
There's nothing wrong with your school.
Multnomah is awesome.
Yeah, there's
Multnomah,
nothing
they're
wrong.
less dispensational, I think. I mean, I don't know how much, but I think they're less dispensational.
All right, but
I think.
so okay, you went.
They
to
were at
school.
the time.
Are they dispensational? I don't know. So Pat went to Multnomah, and then Pat and his wife Cheryl, who is awesome, they moved back to the area here to plant a church with myself and my wife, and Rob Warford and his wife. And so Pat and I have been doing ministry together since 2000.
Long time.
Yeah, man.
Long,
17 years.
17 years, Pat. And so, what have you been like as far as ministry goes? Can you share kind of those various roles that you've kind of handled at the church plant, but even here at Redeemer, just so people get a good idea of why we felt like this episode it's needed with you.
So in 2000, when we moved back to help plant Grace, I approached Joe and basically told him, like, I want to develop the children's ministry. I've always felt, getting through college that was my calling. And so started doing that, and as God was, using me there, and ministry was fruitful, just kind of branched out into family ministry. When as Redeemer was coming around, it was the youth were involved in that calling as well.
Mm-hmm.
And when I came on staff full time, it went from
Dump truck.
yeah,
We
basically
just unloaded on Pat. Oh,
Yeah.
full time. Okay.
yeah. So basically now, as community life pastor, I oversee community groups, discipleship groups, children's ministry, youth ministry, all our smaller gatherings.
Yeah. But a big piece of what you do is pastoral care. A big piece of what you do is meeting with people, mentoring people, doing Bible studies one-on-one with people, counseling,
marriage counseling,
marriage counseling, pre-marriage counseling, all kinds of counseling.
Post-marriage counseling for when they all fall apart.
For when they all fall apart.
Oh yeah.
All
means all.
All means
Just
all.
ask Leighton.
Continue.
Yeah. So as I was coming on full time, the job description that I thought I was going to have got expanded exponentially, and now it's everything that Joe doesn't want to do. Joe says a lot. Joe says that it's everything that he can't do, but
which is
in
even
reality,
which is even more. Yeah, there's things that Joe does that we all know he can't do and shouldn't do.
Yeah, I remember when we were planting our first church, Grace Baptist Church, because that's what you call a Calvinistic Baptist church.
Grace.
So Doctrines of Grace Baptist Church. And hey, Pat, you want to silence your phone? This is our time.
This is our time. You're with us.
Okay. So I remember we had to have guys take on certain roles and responsibilities. And so we had one guy, Rob Warford, take over our worship, leading and all of that. And Pat took over children. And it was, not alone, of course, you and your wife worked together and you raised up people and all that. But man, it was dynamite. I was so excited. And I love what we see happening here at Redeemer. But one of the things that we really believe in is pastoral care for all of our pastors. So when we talk about pastoral care, what really do we mean? How would you guys explain that to someone who wants to know, well, what is this idea?
Basically, it's caring for the members' spiritual health and growth.
Right. So there is a personal aspect of investment of relationship there that really does matter. And this is one of those issues that is really important to the elder team here at Redeemer. Pastoral care is a high priority. It doesn't mean that we always do a great job. It doesn't mean that we don't
that
drop
we're
the ball.
perfect at it or anything.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, definitely not. And but we want that to be
what we're
known for. We want that to be a major emphasis, and
we try to convey that to people quite often. We love you, like we care for you. You're not just a giving unit of the church, right? Like you are a valued member of this family.
Once you become a giving unit,
you become a valued unit, your value goes up.
That's right,
exponentially.
and that's why all the elders' emails are in the program. We want to hear from them. We want to be accessible to them.
Right. I know I'm the preaching pastor, but I give my cell phone out to anybody that's at Redeemer, and that doesn't mean that I pick up every time it rings, because sometimes I'm having dinner with the family, or I turn it off when I go to bed at night, except for those emergency numbers like Jimmy. Or my parents. Those are basically the two emergency numbers that can get through to me.
It's not kind of awkward. Pat's right there.
No, Pat's not on the emergency list.
Well, Pat, you're on my emergency list.
Yeah, of course, because you can't trust me.
No, because Pat and I are best friends.
Yeah, I've texted Joe late at night and gotten no response until late the next day.
Next week, yeah.
Next
probably
week.
when it happened. So when we talk about pastoral care being important, this relational investment in other people to help them grow spiritually and become more like Jesus, why do we value it the way that we do?
Because that's what we're called to do. I mean, you look.
Says who? Says who?
Jesus.
Okay.
Jesus.
I guess you might got me there.
John 10.
Oh, yeah. All right.
Well, all right. Well, tell us about John 10.
So in John 10, it's the "I'm the Good Shepherd" passage, and we're talking about, as pastors and elders, we're called to be under shepherds.
Right.
Yeah.
We've been called to a specific church at a specific time to care for these people. And we're not taking the place of Jesus, but we're pointing people to him.
Mm-hmm.
That's right. I think of like Acts 20:28, right? Pay careful attention to yourselves and to all the flock in which the Holy Spirit has made you overseers to care for the church of God, which he obtained with his own blood.
Yeah, that's so good. So yeah, I mean, this is a biblical concept.
Yeah.
It is what the word pastor actually means. It means to shepherd. It's based on a verb. We are what we do as pastors.
Yeah.
And so a lot of churches tend to view pastors as decision makers, merely exercising oversight in an organizational manner. But we believe what Brother Timothy Whitmer says in his book, The Shepherd Leader, which we're going to recommend later, that the fundamental calling of pastors, elders, elders, for us, that's the same thing. Pastors, elders, same thing. That our primary responsibility is to shepherd the flock.
Yeah.
Right. Which includes various responsibilities, right? Feeding, leading, protecting, things like this on that spiritual level. So shepherding the people is important. And by pastoral care, we are emphasizing that relational, family-oriented, a bit more individualistic care of people than they might get from the preaching ministry of the church.
Absolutely. And I think that, one thing to bear in mind as we're talking about these things is, like in Acts there, in which the Holy Spirit made you overseers. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, as Pat was talking about earlier, like this is a call that God has for us. And so as you are ministering, as you are a pastor, an elder, and overseer, God has called you and placed you in a specific, at a specific time and in a specific place to minister to God's people.
And to those particular people. So when it gets hard, and because I think sometimes it's hard, well, maybe this is just me and my sinful heart. It's like, it's hard to love people sometimes. Yeah, some people can be harder to love, and some churches are very difficult.
Yeah.
I mean, I was in a church where there were some mean, hateful, spiteful, not all of them. Some of them were great, but there were some, we have such easy people here comparatively. Yeah. I love our people.
It is, yeah.
But those are the people that God wants you to care for.
Exactly. So God has placed you there and put you there for a specific time in a season.
And
go ahead,
Pat.
And as pastors, we're going to be held accountable for how we shepherd the people.
Absolutely.
John 10 goes on to talk about, the shepherd versus the hired hand, right?
Yeah, it's
the hired hand has no ownership, has no stake in it, and therefore he has no care or compassion for the people. He's going to bail as soon as it gets hard. And as you were saying earlier about Whitmer's book, one of those things, the two big things that I walk away from that book with, is we're called to protect. We're called to protect the people, protect the sheep.
So when we say protect,
help them see the dangers that are out there.
Yeah, from false teaching, from immorality, ungodliness, spiritual attack, and even the danger that comes from themselves, right?
Right.
I mean, most of the, maybe most, I think in my life, most of the trouble that I get into is of my own doing.
Well, probably, yeah, because it's your job.
Yeah, I know.
Scorpion.
There's only one scorpion. I will sting myself.
That's Well, go ahead. The other thing, though, Pat.
The other thing that we have to do is correct when people go astray.
Mm-hmm.
We can't just cut them loose and say, "Fine, get out of here,"
right,
or go ahead and leave. But we're called to walk with them and help restore them.
Well, let's talk about that here in a little bit. Let's go deeper into that in just a minute. But for now, we're saying that pastoral care, that pastors should be involved in the lives of the people.
Yeah.
Right. But that, this whole idea of pastoral care seems to go wrong. It seems to not work out very well for different reasons, right? Pat, what's one of the ways that, in your estimation, where pastoral care just goes haywire?
I think when it neglects members, when there's not a system in place that contacts people and there are various ways to do that. We can talk about that later. But when people don't know that they have access to the elders or pastors, or when we aren't taking the initiative to reach out to them.
Right.
So I like what he said there about us taking the initiative is one, but then earlier you said about not having systems in place.
Right. So of course you like the systems.
Well, of course.
I like systems.
I like systems because people can very easily fall through the cracks.
Oh, yeah.
As a church grows, it's harder to keep track of who's there, who's not there, how are they connected, are they reaching out, are they part of a community group, are they not, how are they staying plugged into the life of the church, and how are we as elders and as leaders properly shepherding and pastoring and caring for them. So I think, having systems in place is important, and not developing a system is, I from what I'm hearing from Pat, is a form, unintentional as it may be, but it's a form of neglecting.
Yeah. Listen, good intentions aren't going to shepherd your people.
No.
You can have the best intentions of the world. I can speak for all the pastors that I know and I'm friends with. That means guys here and guys at other churches. Best intentions of the world doesn't mean that that they do it all right. Your intentions aren't going to take you very far.
No.
You've got to have things in place that are going to help you carry out those intentions. And a system, and listen, Pat and I, we're not great at the systems. We like other people to help us figure out the systems. So Jimmy is really strong on the systems, whereas we're more wired for other issues, other things, other needs.
Just got to get people to do the system.
Well, and that helping see having the system in place.
Yeah.
Once I know the system, I can work the system.
Yeah.
Exactly. So
Not in a negative way, but
no. But you're right though.
but I need
gaming
help.
the system.
I'm not gaming the system.
So on the one hand, Pat, you're talking about the neglect of members. There's no pastoral care, of course, when we are neglecting members. But I think on the other end of the spectrum, there's no pastoral care even when it's under the guise of pastoral care, members are being abused.
So what do you mean by abuse?
Well,
I'm assuming you mean spiritual abuse,
right?
So give us better context there. No context. You haven't given me context,
right? This is a running inside joke that Jimmy is now bringing into the podcast. No context. We've had 50 texts going back and forth, yelling at each other about. I don't know what you're talking about because there's no context for the statement you just made. Except when he says it to me, he's just playing. And when I say it to him, I'm serious.
No, yeah, go ahead. No context.
So yeah, I think that there are some churches, again, that oftentimes have good intentions that wind up oppressing and controlling, or at least attempting to, their church members. In other words, they are involved to too much of a degree in their lives, not just warning them that they are in sin and calling them to repentance or showing them a better way and mentoring and coaching and discipling them, but they are putting the screws to their thumbs when it comes to decisions that the pastors may not have any business being involved in. So there was in Presbyterian circles, there was a shepherding movement. I think it was actually called something like that, where that was more of a thing. But we also see it in non-confessional churches as well, and some pretty well-known churches that were known for having a leadership culture that was abusive towards its people, demeaning, belittling, bullying. If your pastor is a bully or a jerk, or if you, listener, are a bully or a jerk to your people, you're not caring for your people. You're sinning against God's people, and you're sinning against the Savior. So it is.
So what's the difference, though, Joe, between someone being a bully and someone being direct? Because I can hear someone that is in that position saying, "I'm just calling them out for their sin. They just don't like what they're hearing."
Well, I think we can talk about what healthy pastoral care looks like, and that might help us to kind of flesh this out a little bit. So let's do that. But on the front end, I would say that a bully is less interested in understanding a person and in helping a person grow and become better and become stronger. A bully is usually simply wanting to be right and wanting to control people and get people to fall in line. This is one of the general differences that I tend to see as it relates to it. But Pat, when we're talking about healthy pastoral care, right? Ideologically, not that we do these things perfectly at all, but when we're talking about ideologically healthy pastoral care, if it's not neglect and it's not abuse, what does it look like?
I think it starts with just knowing your people.
Right. That's good.
Having a relationship with them, outside of Sunday morning, being available to hang out, being available to meet, maybe not at the drop of a hat, but, being able to get together and, hear their story and hear where they're coming from. Yeah. Because when you know those things, you're better able to pastor them. You're better able to lead them.
So if we're talking about, knowing your people, or we can just call it awareness, right? If you're going to have a knowledge of your people, you're going to need a system in place for that. Because once you get over like 12 people,
it's hard to get to know everybody.
It's pretty hard. So that's when you need a system that's going to help you communicate with small group leaders and deacons and other people, because maybe, like, for example, in our context, I might be talking to a couple in the church that the other elders and elder candidates are not talking to. So I report to them so that they then now know those people and what's going on in their lives. So I think that's a really good one, Pat, that we have to know the people. I mean, Jesus in that passage, right? I know my sheep. Yeah, they hear my voice. There's this relationship there. I think that's really good.
A shepherd smells like sheep.
Right.
Because they're close. Get it?
Yeah, no, I know. Listen,
do you understand it?
I was going to go somewhere else, but yes.
Right. But I think along those same lines, I know we've touched on in the past, is the difference between what can be kept confidential in what does confidentially look like in an elder room. Right. So there are things that Joe discusses with other members, people of the church, and he reports back, and everyone in the room knows about it. But then how is that different than, like, how do you keep confidentiality?
I think that people know that and I make it clear that they know when they're talking to me, they're talking to the elders.
Yeah.
And so what when I hear about a situation, I always have to listen. I'm going to share this with the elders, but I won't be sharing it with anyone else. I won't be sharing it with my wife. In fact, I just had a conversation recently, and I said, hey, listen, I'll report back to the elders and let them know what's going on because they love you and they want to pray for you. I said, and I won't, I don't have to tell my wife. And they're like, no, that'd be great. You go ahead and tell your wife. They would like that. So usually they understand on the front end that we're not keeping secrets, but we're keeping things confidential.
Yeah.
And the circle of confidentiality for true pastoral care means it has to go beyond the scope of the one elder. And it's important because you want a team of men praying for, involved in, contributing to this, but also there is a secondary issue. Whereas if you are meeting with someone and keeping that totally private and locked down, it doesn't provide a lot of accountability for you as a leader. So that's no bueno, right, Jimmy?
Yeah,
Pat,
good job.
What do you think?
One of the ways we've seen it work here is our community group leaders have brought us stuff.
Oh, yeah.
Where the person, for whatever reason, didn't think they could approach the elders,
Sure.
but took it to their community group leader who did the same thing you just said. Hey, I'm going to share this with the elders.
Yeah.
And then we can reach out. So, leadership development is kind of one of those areas that,
And I like
that helps the health of our pastoral care.
I like when they go to their CG leaders initially.
Right.
I think that's really good. And sometimes that's all that it needs. It only, like, we know about it, they deal with it, and that's great. Sometimes it needs to come to us. But I love that because that means that real community is being born. Those community leaders, those community group leaders, they're not pastors, but they do function in a shepherding kind of role.
They're doing a lot of soul care.
Yeah, soul care big time. So I love that. So you got to know your people.
Yeah.
And if we're going to get into this later, but if you don't know your pastor, if you don't have any relationship with the elders of your church, it could be your fault. It could be their fault. It could just be the nature of the beast, meaning some churches
are just
simply
too big.
Don't allow for it. So we'll talk about that in a little bit. All right. One of the things that I think about when I think about healthy pastoral care is knowledge. Obviously, I think that's something to start with. But then love. And we talk about this a lot, that pastors should actually care about the people. Jimmy, like you said, they're not giving units. They're not heads to be counted in the sanctuary on Sunday morning. Those are people that God has brought into our lives to be under our care, for us to know and pray for and serve. And people can know. I think people can tell if a leader actually cares for them, is compassionate toward them, is invested in them, versus a guy that says, "Oh, well, okay, I guess I got to deal with you because you're coming to my church." I think love is really big,
and I think that that's where the abusive pastors, the abusive members, I think they're just worried about growing a big church. And not really caring for the people that are there.
And it's easy, right? I mean, everybody wants their church to grow and be healthy and vibrant and to increase in numbers so that we can reach more people and send out more people and all of that. But it's easy to get distracted, and to become more about one thing than the other. And if you become more about the numbers and the growth of your church than you are the care of your people, there's definitely a problem. Jimmy, what comes to your mind when you think of healthy pastoral care?
I think there needs to be communication.
No, of course. Here we go.
What?
Jimmy, communicate. No,
there needs to be communication.
What you mean.
When I'm talking about, there's various forms of it. Like, you could be church-wide communication. So things such as, when the elder, here's one of the things I always appreciate about the elders here at Redeemer, is what's discussed in the elder room, while it is confidential when it pertains to the life of the church and the direction of the church, they will communicate what they're thinking and what's going on for months in advance. I mean, I've been in churches where the elders have been accused of moving too fast. I've never been in a church like this where it's been accused of moving too slow.
Step it up, son.
Where, if there's an issue going on or there's something that they're working through, they'll take a good year and update the church, every church members meeting, and sometimes during on a Sunday morning, and just say, hey, FYI, that one thing, we're still kind of dealing with it. We're still working it through.
We didn't have a church name for 2 years. We didn't have a church name for 2 years. It was just church.
Church.
And then 2 years later, we're like Redeemer Fellowship.
Redeemer Fellowship. So, it takes a while, which is good. But the leadership has to communicate what's going on and not blindside people. And so it could be at the members' meetings. It could be in an e-blast. It could be on a Sunday morning. But then then also just personally making sure that when we do know that there's issues going on in people's life, to be reaching out continually, one-on-one or as an elders, as the elder board does, to sit down and discuss and say, hey, I just want to know how it's going.
Yeah.
We love you. We care for you. We just want to see how you're doing right now.
What are some ways that people that pastors can reach out to their people to communicate with them on that level, Jimmy? What are some common, like, easy?
Oh yeah, I mean, Facebook stalk, right? Like, if you go on Facebook, you can see maybe where they're at and show up at the coffee shop and say,
At the bar they're getting drunk
at the bar. But no, I mean, you can reach out, whether it's by text or email or phone.
Handwritten letter?
Handwritten letter. I've never actually done that, I'll be honest.
That's a good one.
That's a good one, though.
Yeah,
And I found that that's well received.
Oh, people are like,
I'm sure.
dang.
Dang, he took the time. I haven't done that.
I have Deb write them for me. I just sign my name.
But in any way, like, just making sure you're reaching out personally,
Yeah.
just to see how things are.
Phone call.
Man,
in Whitmer, I think Whitmer talks about it in an interview, the guy that wrote Shepherd Leader. I don't know if it's in the book or in an interview, but he was saying how they did a survey of a bunch of people in his denomination. I think it was his denomination. But the point is that they asked the people, when do the pastors call? And there were two reasons given, always two reasons. One, there's trouble. Two, they want money. Those were the two reasons they were being contacted or communicated with. And
stinks.
Whitmer was horrified. He's like, oh, no, this is not the way it's supposed to be.
No.
This is why he wrote the book Shepherd Leader, which everybody should get. I think, communication is really good. And then also, I think that when we're talking about healthy pastoral care, one of the things that we really focus on, and Pat, you mentioned this a little while ago, is coming alongside people to help them. Pastoral care is help. It's assistance. It's not just telling them that they're wrong. It's not just knowing about an issue and doing nothing. It's about getting involved and doing something, right?
Yeah, and it shows them, that when we say we love you, we really mean it.
Right.
Because we back it up with some money.
Sometimes that's needed.
Sometimes I love the benevolence ministry here because it's a very robust ministry. People contribute to it. We set money aside for it in the budget, and it really is great to know. Well, we have some resources so that when somebody is in need, we can help them in that way. But it's not just finances, right?
No.
There's a lot of ways.
No, it's counsel. It's sometimes people need help moving something from one spot to another.
Exactly.
And we get people over there to do it.
A lot of pastors wind up going to court. I've been in court situations with church members. And depending on the makeup of your body, you might have more or less of that. There's all kinds of ways that pastors wind up caring for the people that go beyond praying for them. Praying for them is one of the most important things that you can do. But like James says, if you're all talk and you don't back it up with anything, then you're just a poser and a fake, and you should get out of the business of being a pastor. What else? What else does healthy pastoral care look like?
Sometimes it does look like correction. It does look like discipline. And, you can't walk into that without having a relationship. It's not going to work.
Right.
No.
That's a really good point.
And that's why.
What happens when you try to exercise discipline on somebody that you have never talked to before?
Yeah, it's not going to work.
What might they say to you, Pat?
Yeah. I can't say what they might say.
We actually haven't had that problem because we work really hard at
getting to know people.
At getting to know people. That's such a good word. The idea that we would be knowing the people well enough to actually have an opportunity to bring them under church discipline, which sounds to a lot of people like a really scary thing.
And we've talked about church discipline in the past, but can you give just a really brief what we're talking about when we say that?
So when we're talking about church discipline, most of the time we're talking about corrective discipline. This is when a person has persisted in sin, some serious sin, and they need to be called on it. They need to be corrected. Something needs to happen. And so what happens is one of the pastors will typically go and talk to that person and to say, hey, I see that you're in trouble, and we want to help. Pastors want to help you. We love you. We care for you. And by and large, the response is, okay, help me. Like, let's get this right. Sometimes they confess to us, and then and we don't catch them. We've never caught anybody, I don't think. It's not
I
that
can't
thing.
think, yeah.
But sometimes, like, a family member will catch somebody doing something really bad, and then they'll call us. But most of the time, people say, they confess. They go, hey, here's the trouble, here's the problem. Can you help me? So I think that what it really looks like, to kind of build on what you said earlier, coming alongside, the way I like to think about it is when a person is in trouble, when a person is in sin, we come alongside them, not to wag a finger, but to put our arm underneath them and to pick them up and to help them get back on track with, believing the gospel, trusting God, obeying God, and getting all the help that they need. Sometimes it means, a recovery center of some sort.
Yeah.
Sometimes it means that a harder word because they're still not repentant, but they know that things are kind of off. But in general, correction and discipline, the way we say it here, it must be practiced with grace.
Yeah.
If you're just shunning and condemning and being hard, I mean, that's not how God the Father deals with us as his children.
No.
He's patient, wise, and gracious towards us. And so we need to be that way towards others. So real pastoral care, let me put it this way. If you are a church or you are a leadership, if you're a pastor and you're like, oh, we're big on pastoral care, awareness, love, communication, and assistance, but you don't practice discipline, then you don't actually care about your people.
Oh, yeah.
Because if they're in trouble, it's your responsibility to rescue them, to turn them away from that and to get them on the right path again.
And on the flip side of that, though, if you're a church that excels at correction and discipline, but are not aware, loving, communicating, or assisting your people, it's abuse.
Mm-hmm. 100%.
Yeah, all of them have to be in play
That's right.
in order for it to be true pastoral care.
Yeah, but pastors can be... All right, some pastors are just weird. Some pastors
Yeah.
are awkward.
Oh, yeah.
No, don't raise your hand.
Yeah, come on now, Pat. Maybe yes.
Game I saw, I made it awkward.
Pat and I and Jimmy and Brian and Jeff and Rob, we want to be the kind of pastors where people aren't afraid or intimidated. Yeah. And sometimes the office itself, that of pastor, is inherently intimidating to people. They already feel like, ooh, I don't know. And then sometimes your persona can push people away, right? You got the RBF going. You got that face that tells people stay away.
The resting Baptist
face. The resting
yeah,
Baptist face,
gotcha.
yes. I wasn't referring to anything else, people, except I was. You've got that resting Baptist face on. You give off this vibe that people can't approach you. And if you're a preacher, listen, they hear you. They listen to you preach the talk every Sunday. You're communicating something about yourself. So critical for pastors who are going to be working hard to care for the people, there have to be a few things that are true about them. We've talked about this a lot, Pat, right? What must be true of pastors if they're going to be good at pastoral care?
I think the biggest thing for me is to be available. I need to plan my day and my week with enough white space in it for when people call.
Yeah.
Is there a reason you call it white space, Pat?
On my calendar.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But you call it white space.
Yeah, it's called white space. Yeah.
Because
Why is it
nothing's
white?
scheduled
Is it-
there in
yeah.
that time.
Because it's
The calendar is
white.
still white.
Yeah,
Why is it
it's
so
like it's
white? I just feel like it's a little...
I think you're trying to make it a
It's
racist
no, it's a
thing.
little prejudice.
Yeah,
It's
you're
a
trying
little
to make it a-
prejudicial. I'm
you're
not
trying
making
to-
it.
you're
Pat
trying-
made it.
No,
Pat
he
made it
did
weird
not.
by saying it's
No,
white
no, he
space.
did not. You made
He's
it weird
only
by saying
making
what you
space for
made.
white people.
No, that's
This is the white space.
Well, look at the demographic of our church.
Okay, so I guess Travell doesn't get any time
And
as Pat.
that's why I got no pastoral care.
Okay.
So for the listeners of Doctrine and Devotion, welcome to my world.
Oh, geez, and we're like so easy and chill. On
I know we're
Doctrine
actually
and
chill on
Devotion.
the podcast.
Yeah, okay.
So availability means that, we have to have a schedule that is flexible enough
Yeah.
that allows us to be interrupted by people, right?
And I mean, Pat, I'd like to ask you this question because you excel at this. You make yourself available, and not just during the day, but I see you here often at night meeting with people. So how do you balance being available to the members of the church and yet still being present for your family? Because I think that's actually an important aspect of this.
For sure.
Because sometimes we can go one side or the other. Listen, I'm done at 5. I'm off the clock. Leave me alone. And then others that are never off the clock to the detriment of their family. How have
And
you?
little Tommy's like, who's my dad?
Why are you saying
What's
little
my dad's
Tommy?
name?
Because his
Yeah,
son's
his son's name is Tommy. That's what I'm saying.
Tommy has never said that.
No.
You are a great father and a great husband. Yeah. But we will need to discuss this after in the elder meeting.
That's fine.
So how do you balance those things?
No, like right now we're getting ready for our next members meeting. So a lot of people who are joining or wanting to join need to get their elder interview in.
They're waiting to the last minute again, aren't they?
They are
Hey,
waiting
fools.
to the last minute.
Stop that.
So, in that time, like family knows I'm going to be out later. I'm going to, and I make up for it during the other times. So
there's seasons where you're busier.
There's a balance. Yeah. And it's seasonal. It's not constant.
Yeah.
Also, Pat, you have an awesome, strong, godly wife who will tell you what's up.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
Yeah, she's not afraid to say.
Cheryl tells all of us what's up.
Cheryl will
She's
tell
put
you.
us all in our place.
Cheryl is gracious and hospitable, but she's a strong woman. And so it's like, I know that she would say, hey, you aren't present. So get your act together. She would say that.
Oh, yeah. She'll come in like a hurricane and just break it all up.
All right, that was another inside joke. I'm sorry. Let me apologize to our listeners. Jimmy's dropping inside jokes that only Pat and I can appreciate.
Well, you know what? It's only for you and Pat and Cheryl.
Who I'm not sure has ever listened.
No,
Yeah,
she
don't
never
listen to
listens. She don't
listen
listen to us.
She
ain't
can't
got time
stand the
for us.
banter.
Yeah, she can't handle it.
So you got to be available, and we also talk about being approachable.
Yes.
Right? So why does approachability matter, Jimmy? Like, what is approachability?
I think approachability is one thing is making yourself available, like you said, but then not. I think, how do you word it? Like, when people do come up to you, how you present yourself is important. If you look annoyed,
How you receive them.
how you receive them. If you look annoyed, distracted, not focused, it conveys something to somebody, to a member, that they are not important to you,
Right.
And so they should not approach you about anything.
Right.
So I think how you present yourself, and I think that also means then how you present yourself on a Sunday morning, right? In our preaching and greeting people beforehand or saying hello to people afterwards.
Yeah.
Making sure that you are down to earth, I think, is important.
Yeah.
I've actually heard this quite often from people that when they especially, I'm thinking of people in my neighborhood that would look at, they'd say, well, hold on, you guys are Southern Baptist.
Uh-oh. Check that box.
But then they're like, but you guys are so approachable. Like, people have asked me about our church. They're like, you guys are approachable. You're honest. You're real. Like, you don't fake it.
As you're smoking a cigar and
as
pouring
I'm
a glass of
smoking
bourbon.
cigars, drinking bourbon with them, and watching Fight Night late into the evening. But I mean, people just want to, like, because that's what they want. They want, if they have this, if you present yourself as holier than thou, if you present yourself as Mr. Know-It-All,
Right.
then people don't feel safe.
Yeah.
Because they feel ashamed. They feel ashamed of their sin, but that's only because they don't see your sin as readily.
My perception of pastors, when I was converted, I mean, pretty quick, I wanted to be a pastor. Because I wanted to tell people about Jesus, and I wanted to know Jesus, and I wanted to help people know Jesus. But I was told by a few people that my past was too messed up and I couldn't be a pastor. And that really stuck with me. And so I went to trade school. I started doing something else and didn't even look at applying to Moody. And I saw pastors as these super holy dudes, like totally different from the rest of us. And I knew, like, well, I can't be that. I even know now that could never be me. And it wasn't until other people began to speak into my life and say, no, you should pursue this. And then I got to know a few pastors up close. And it turns out they're like me.
Yeah.
They're a regular Christian, a regular person. They sin, they get in trouble. I saw one pastor get in trouble with his wife one time for roughhousing in the living room with his son and knocking over furniture. And she scolded him, and it was hysterical and like really eye-opening for him. Like, oh, yeah, he's a dummy just like me. There's nobody perfect.
No.
So I think what you're saying about approachability, Jimmy, and how you receive people and what you tell other people about yourself is really good.
And I think with approachability, approachability is going to look different on Sunday morning than it does
you're right.
throughout the week. I mean, as pastors, Joe, I know you're busy. I'm busy running around making sure that teachers and supplies and stuff are in place in our children's ministry. And so it's going to look busy, and the conversation is probably going to be shorter on Sunday than during the week. But I don't think people should read into that and say, oh, they're not approachable.
Yeah, and that's going to be compensated, I think, by the way we're communicating outside of that context, and the other things that we're doing.
But I'm also thinking there are some individuals that I think we know of that have bragged about having a special doorway from their office to the pulpit.
Yeah.
so that they don't have to see anybody.
Right.
You know, in between.
Yeah.
I think that.
Yeah, that was James McDonald.
No, that was don't.
Oh, you're gonna bleep
don't.
that? Did
No,
you
I'm
just
not.
bleep that?
I might have to now.
I love giving you more work to do
I
in
know.
post.
Thank you, Mark. so yeah. But I mean, that's really what I'm referring to, is that if you're not willing to talk and say hi, you're right. People are busy. I know Joe, after first service, needs to come into this office and pray and read over his notes.
To be honest, I'm hiding because I feel like my last sermon sucked. And I was like, I'm just going to get out of here. It's embarrassing. And I was like, I'll just get a duck out. And
No, Joe, it's not bad.
Yeah. I don't believe you. I don't believe you when you say that.
See, I attend first service most times.
Oh, so
you
don't
get it.
So you don't know how
So I don't know how good second service
You
is,
get a
evidently.
face full of average is what you get. I think approachability also, this whole idea of just being a regular person, a conversationalist, a guy that doesn't always have to talk about X, Y, and Z, but you can adapt to different situations. Pastors need to be good there. And I think that that goes a long way. Availability, approachability, we believe that these are critical for pastors.
Yeah.
All right, so one of the things that we really value at Redeemer is small church. We like small church. We're not a big fan of mega church. Now, we don't think mega church is sinful or wrong or anything like that. We favor smaller churches. And smaller churches, we're not even putting a real number on it, except I will. I don't really like, once you hit 500 for sure, I think it gets a lot more complicated.
I think it's complicated at 100.
Well, it gets increasingly complicated, yes. But so things change. But it's in our experience, we're like 270s the last couple of weeks. We're between 250 and 270 on average, I think.
Yeah, that's fair.
On a Sunday, if you count the babies, we count the babies, even though we're not Presbyterian. So we half count them. I think that we can exercise pastoral care with a pastoral team of elders who function together in parity. And I think you can do that up to 300, maybe 400. But then after that, I think it gets really difficult to maintain the availability, the approachability, and the ongoing pastoral care without an elder board that is so big. It really becomes decentralized, and there's not a lot of unity and cooperation. I think it's harder for unity and cooperation and communication among the elder board once you get too big.
It gets exponentially bigger once you get, over that 500.
Yeah.
I think so.
Because how do you, like, when we break up our membership role to be praying for them and be contacting them, how do you do that when you have a church of, 1,000 people?
Yeah. Well,
that's all you're going to do.
That's when you hire a pastor of prayer, and that his job is pray for everybody, so you don't have to. Now you can do that on the big staff.
Yeah, but for us, that's just not feasible.
All right, Pat, give us some recommended readings. People are listening, and they're so glad that you're on here. They want to know what you think. What books should I be reading to move in this direction of being a good shepherd and exercising good pastoral care with the people?
Well, you've mentioned Whitmer's book, The Shepherd Leader.
We make everybody read that book.
We do. We make all of our guys read that. Another one is Side by Side by Ed Welch. We took our pastoral development guys through that. That was one of the first books we read with them. And then Being There by Dave Furman is another one.
Furman!
Just teaching us how to be present with people.
The Furmans are awesome. Dave and Gloria. They're legit.
Mm-hmm.
They're
too legit to quit.
They are too legit.
Too legit to quit.
Those are good recommendations. I'm going to throw in there Richard Baxter, a Reformed pastor.
Yep.
It'll give you to definitely pick up Pat's recommendations. Okay, and I would say if you're only going to get one, get Shepherd Leader, but that's me. Get these three by Pat, but then also to go kind of in another direction with this and to get into a historical context, read Richard Baxter.
Feel horrible about yourself on the front end.
You will feel like first you're not a Christian, and then once you figure out you are a Christian, you're going to feel like you're definitely not called to ministry. And then you'll feel like I am called to ministry, but I'm terrible at it. And then you'll begin to get through it and feel better about what God's doing in and through you. But read Richard Baxter because he's all about discipleship, communication, mentoring, being with people, visitation, and how to talk to people about the gospel and where they're at spiritually. It's a really, really good book.
So, Pat, if people want to follow up with you and they want to talk to you, where can they find you online?
Are you on the Twitter?
I am on the Twitter.
You're on the Twitter?
Rarely, but I'm on the Twitter. both Twitter and Instagram is at Pat Aldridge.
Ooh, you got the name.
Good
Jimmy,
job.
you have a
Stop
name?
it.
What happened, Jimmy?
Stop it.
You don't have Jimmy Fowler?
No.
It's like JFowl6_7 or something. It's awful.
It's not any
the
of that.
worst
It's
way.
none of that.
All right, so you're at
ahead.
Pat Aldridge.
Yeah.
That's
and then
really
I'm
good.
on Facebook as well. So
All right. Facebook is Pat Aldridge.
yeah.
/Pat Aldridge?
Yeah.
Oh, that's pretty good.
That's
You got that,
pretty good.
Jimmy?
Now, what about your website?
Oh, I blog at pataldridge.com.
Oh, you got the
There you go.
You got the name on it. How about you, Jimmy? You got the
I got JimmyFowler.net.
Oh, that's pretty good. That's pretty good.
I also blog at gospelcenterfamily.com.
Gospel Center.
Gotcha.
They should go there because that's not just you. That's a couple of your buddies too
Yeah.
that are also in this kind of ministry context.
Right.
That's really good.
Well,
stuff,
you can
man.
follow us on Instagram and Twitter at Doc and Devo or on Facebook /Doctrine Devotion. You can head to the website, drdevotion.com. There you can contact us. You can sign up for our email blast, or you can hit up the store, grab the Reformation 500 tee.
Oh, they're going.
If they're available.
They're going.
At this point, I'm not sure if they're going to be available.
The week that we're recording this, we've sold a ton of those shirts.
There's been a lot. Our phone won't stop going. So if there's any, grab them while you can. Hit up the conference, the 2018 Doctrine of Devotion Conference on the Spirit and the Church. with
Travell's
Pastor
gonna be there?
Doug,
I'm going to be there.
Logan.
Yeah, but
Pastor Pat's going to be there.
But Travell's single.
Oh, well, yeah.
Travell is the bait for all the single ladies. All the single ladies.
I don't even know what to say to you at this point. Fresh Pod, everybody.
If you
Thursday,
want it, you
blog
better
post
put a
on
ring on
Wednesdays.
it. It's Beyonce. You know
Video
Beyonce.
content Friday. Drop it like it's hot.